So today we're in today's webinar, we're going to talk about the updates, the new MERS file layout. There is the latest that we've heard on the no tax and overtime, the new MIUI, and then also as we roll into 2026, how to prepare for the upcoming tax season. Our next webinar is December 1st. In the Act 51 drop-down and accounts menu item, we added a blank one so you can actually clear out. We realized we didn't have a blank one, so now you can actually clear out the Act 51 line. So we fixed all the renumber checks utilities and pay invoices. So we have renumber payroll checks and renumber AP checks to correctly determine if the check number was already in use. We also updated pay invoices to allow the use of older check numbers that are not attached to a financial institution. So we noticed that sometimes previously older data did not have a financial institution attached to them. So in our check for checking if the check number had been used, it found an old check number that didn't even belong to that financial institution. So we updated that. So you don't have to, you can now use the same check number, even though it's by financial institution now. So because we no longer allow you to use a check number if we find that check for that financial institution's already been in use. The old just lets you do it no matter what. So now it's a lot harder to accidentally get duplicate check numbers. So we updated the import time cards to add a date and employee number to the mechanic notes if the time card was a work order time card. So when you go to import it, it'll add in the employee number and a date into the mechanic notes on the import. So that way when they go into work order, they can see the mechanic notes. It'll show up as a line. We did add the 2025 ACAE file for 2025. In purchase orders, we added vendor status as a column on the vendor selection dropdown. That way you can see if the vendor you're selecting is active or inactive. Eventually, we'll probably I don't know if you've been noticing in some of our new windows, we've been filtering things out. So we'll probably filter those out so you can click on the filter button and filter in the inactives. But for now, it'll just show all the status. We'd updated a bunch of new windows to the new style. Most of these are smaller utilities, but we updated equipment wheel hour calculation. We updated the equipment questionnaire calc. We updated the change equipment code. We updated the fringe and benefits spread. We updated the cost of roads spread. And we updated the post balances forward. And we also added the feature that administrators can change the fiscal year dates if needed. We added default parameter titles to deductions in both deductions and employee comp package. So there's now default parameter titles instead of just not used or param1. We updated the employee comp package by removing the direct deposit validations for the federal, state, and local deductions. Those are actually different fields instead of direct deposit account numbers for the federal and state and local. We added an adjustment field called adder to the federal, state, and local deductions. So this is used when any extra amount needs to be withheld without having to change the employee's W-4. So we've encountered some cases where the federal didn't get taken out, so they had to withhold an extra amount, but they didn't want to change the W-4 because you're technically not allowed to. So we have an extra box that will add or subtract the amount on their next payrolls. So it can even it out over the course of the quarter. We fixed an issue with the quarterly tax reports where employees with inactive Social Security or Medicare deductions would cause a large number to be entered into the fraction of cents. We now actually report that as taxes owed or taxes reimbursed as opposed to fractions of cents. All right. Most of this stuff I will go through. So an employee comp package, if I go to deductions and I go to federal, we now have this adder where you can type in the additional amount if needed. It could be both positive and or negative. So purchase orders, that'd be inventory. In the vendor dropdown, we now have status as a column, so you can filter it out. And obviously the top line is blank, so that'll clear it out the vendor. So post balance is forward. Yep. So again, it works the same way as the old one, but now we have this. When if you click this, the dates will unlock and you can change the effective dates. And I believe it's locked by if you are an administrator in ProFund, you have access to this. Otherwise, just a standard user does not have access to this. Cost of road spread works similar. I believe we had an issue where the percent cannot go above 100. We fixed that. That'll be in the next update where you can enter in an amount greater than 100. It's like on fringe spread, I think the max right here is 100. But in our next update, you'll be allowed to enter in a percentage higher than 100%. So we didn't, and we go equipment, change equipment code. Again, you've selected equipment code, type it in. Say, let's make it 2 and click change code. And it will also update the DEE, DFE, and ECO if you want to update the equipment, the other equipment account numbers as well. I want to, I click yes. And it will close it. Accounts. We added a blank line, not exempt, but a blank line that will clear the Act 51 line if you happen to have one assigned. And when you click save, it'll clear it. All right, next I'm going to move on to the MERS with the new MERS file layout coming in spring of 2026. We're expecting the test files to be released mid to late November for you guys to send to email to the MERS. The format's pretty much done. We're just working on how to get that, how we want to put that in our software. So those are pretty much done with the new file format. Currently, some of the fields may have to be entered by hand to start with. We might talk with some of you on how to automate that, but there's just a couple of the new fields that aren't in the old file format that are a little bit more difficult to handle. Obviously, because the changes aren't happening until spring of 2026, but you still have to file through your old amounts. Both the old and the new file format will be available at the same time. One thing that they added to the new file format is they now have your annual salary and they ask for your hours type and a salary per pay period. So if the pay code for the employee HAP is H, then the amount qualifier column will be H for the hourly, and the salary will be the column will be the employee's rate. Otherwise, I'm just going to annualize whatever their rate is, and it will have an A. So if they and that's based on their number of pay periods. So if they have like 24 pay periods in a, or a, sorry, 24 pay periods in a year, which means that they're paid. That would be bi-weekly, I believe, or 26. Sorry, 26 would be bi-weekly pay period. So then I annualize their salary. And these are new fields that MERS put in there to make sure that the proper amount is getting taken out and for verification for the employee. The new MERS plan number will still be entered in the plan box. You'll type that in because all the MERS plan numbers will change. Currently, we allow you to check any of the payrolls, but I found out that most of you just do it one payroll at a time. But now it'll be locked where you have to choose the pay date. According to the new file format, it is per pay date and not per month, like you have the option of doing once a month. And also the defined benefit, excuse me, the defined benefit plan has no changes. That of the four, that is the only one that currently does not have any changes. The one thing I do want to point out is in the MERS, I believe it's the 457 plan. One of the columns actually accidentally got included in the current file format. So if you try to upload your MERS 457, There's an extra column in there. It'll be fixed in our next update, but if you happen to come across it, I'm not sure I have it. MERS 457. We don't have any codes, so let me just quickly go into my MERS. This is what I want. This is my MERS 457. So if I go back into my MERS, I select my MERS 457. I want to go 2024. I'm going to create my MERS file into documents. Then I'm going to go into my documents and open that folder. This is all fake data. So the column B, this plan number, is going to replace the MERS division number, but it got accidentally included in the old version of the MERS 457. So all you have to do is go in here, do a right click and go delete. And then your file format's correct. Again, with the next update, we'll include a fix for this, but if you happen to do MERS in between that on your 457, then you'll have to go in there and do that. The one thing that I'm not 100% sure on that I'm going to have to call MERS is it seems like they want all eligible employees reported, not just the ones who have that deduction code. So does anyone know exactly what they're looking for if they want that? Because I am not reading it. It's because they say in their documentation they want all eligible employees, not just ones who are actually using it. So does anybody know, like, has heard anything from MERS that they should be including every single employee who's eligible? And you can unmute and answer this if you want. Okay, they want all employee information. Gotcha. That's what we figured, but we're just wondering if anyone else heard anything different. Okay. Okay, so if they will include every single employee. So that's good to know. All right. Now I'm going to pause there again. If anyone has any questions or comments on the MERS file format, I don't think the screen will change much. Probably the dropdown will have the option of the old and the new file format just in there, and then you just choose one of them. So the biggest update is there are no changes to the 2025 W-2. There's no new fields. There's no new codes for box 12 for the 2025 W-2. So that is already set. So how they're defining this overtime. So the qualified overtime compensation refers to the overtime compensation paid to an individual that is required under, Section 7 of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. So I actually pulled that up and looked at that to get the official definition. And the IRS defines this as any hours worked over 40 hours in a standard work week, and not necessarily hours paid as overtime hours. So just because you paid it overtime doesn't mean it qualifies for that. It's defined as any hours worked over 40 hours in a work week. However, the one thing that I will have to get guidance on, and they haven't said yet, is if some of those overtime hours weren't paid as time and a half. So that is something to be determined. Also, it only counts the extra half above your base rate. So when you make that time and a half, only the half counts for this deduction. And again, this is only available to employees who are eligible for overtime compensation. If you are salaried or do not qualify for overtime compensation, then you do not qualify. There is some cases where a salaried person could qualify, but those are very rare cases, and I don't think anybody working at the Road Commission would, if they're salaried, would qualify for those special cases. So what this is officially is it is a taxable income reduction. It's not exempt of credit. Employers are still required to withhold the proper amounts when processing payroll. So this deduction started, even though the bill got passed in July of 2025, it is retroactive to January 1st of 2025. And next year, again, when processing payroll, the regular amount's got to get withheld. So the IRS has said just keep withholding it, and then they'll get it as an income reduction when they file their taxes. You also must be single or married filing jointly to claim this deduction. They do specify that it isn't if you are like head of household or single or married filing separately, then you do not qualify for this deduction. So as I stated before, the 2025 W-2 will have no changes. The 2026 W-2 will have a box 12 code called T for overtime. This will be in January of 2027. When you hand out the W-2s to your employee, there'll be a box 12 with the overtime compensation amount. The IRS has stated you can report the 2025 qualified overtime compensation in box 14 for each employee. So that's where this year they want it put in box 14. So the IRS does provide a safe harbor rule to let you average the hours from the second half of 2025, which is July through December, to figure out the annual amount. So they say you can take the hours of overtime, the average hours of overtime worked per week from the second half, and then just make it an average across the whole year to figure out what annual amount should go in there. The IRS has not issued final guidance for tax year 2025. There is a lot of accounting firms that have asked the IRS to what to do. They haven't really issued 100. They're still kind of waiting on exactly what they want. I don't know if they're affected by the shutdown at all, but so things are always subject to change. Also, if the employer does not fill out box 14 with the overtime compensation or provide some sort of documentation to their employee, then the employee cannot claim the deduction. So you don't have to fill out box 14, but then you have to give an employee like a document or something with their overtime compensation so they can attach it to their taxes when they file in April for them in order to claim this deduction. We will provide a way to get the correct overtime compensation. That is to be determined, but we're working on a way for you to get the correct overtime compensation for each employee. So we will have that available before the end of the year. Yeah, it's going to take some trickiness, especially with the road commissions, because sometimes they get overtime hours even though they haven't worked 40 hours. So that's what makes it a little tricky, but we will have the correct overtime compensation. And also, when we mean overtime compensation, we are exclusively talking about that extra amount that was with the extra half pay, not the full time and a half, just the half pay. That's what goes in box 12 next year, box 14 this year, the additional amount of overtime compensation, not their regular rate. Currently, there will be no changes to the 2026 941s. There was talk that they might add a separate line for overtime compensation for that quarter, but at this point there's no need to because it's an income reduction. It's just a reporting at the end of the year, so they're not going to have it. We're thinking about how we're going to approach that, whether it be a report or we might have a menu item that has all their overtime compensation, or we might just add it in to box 14. I think we'll have a way you can view it. We'll definitely have a way you can view it. And we may or may not just add it into box 14 automatically for each employee. But the hardest part will be figuring out how many hours qualify for overtime. That's currently where the no tax on overtime stands. Again, everything is subject to change. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of MI Login for Business, but that's the service they will use instead of your own MyWham login. You now use your MI Login for Business to access the service. You can log into your MI Login account and request access. It should be granted immediately. It was for me. We finished the new file format for the upload. We're just waiting for it to go live in December, and I'm assuming we can at least test the upload to make sure it was tested successfully. I haven't heard if they're actually going to give us testing, or we just have to go live and hope it works when we try to use it. And again, if there are changes we have to make, we'll make them and get them released right away. When you file your fourth quarter Michigan unemployment, you'll be using the new system. So starting in December, after December 15th, you'll be using the new system for pretty much everything. There's just a few things that won't be changed from the old to the new. Go back one. I want to go show the MI login. So if you've ever used login, MI login, this is what the home screen looks like. As you can see, I already have the new portal. There's a find services button. There'll be a find services button here, and you can type in MIUI, and you click on that, and you click on that. Say that I've already requested services, so you agree to the terms and conditions and click request services, and then you'll get an email saying it they granted you service. It should be immediately. So again, you log in. This is your home page. You click find services. It might be down here, but I usually just type in MIUI. You click on that, and then they'll show up right here, and then you can request service. And then once you have access to it, you just click on it. It'll ask you for the terms of services. You click launch service, and then at this point, it's on their landing screen. So they have tutorial guides, everything on how to use it. So just useful information if you're not sure. But that is how you can sign up for. Yeah, okay. I figured that. I know some of these you have to request access and then they validate you, but that one was immediate. So I recommend you guys all do that before December 15th and maybe explore some of the tutorials. But like I said, we'll have the file format ready to go by the time this goes live. We'll have it inside our software for you to use in December. So it'll be on the quarterly tax report form. But it'll just basically, yeah, you might not even see a difference. It'll just be a different file format. We hurtle towards January and reporting season for 1099s and W-2s. I want to make sure that you verify all your vendors that are going to get a 1099. They have the same information as the IRS. The IRS provides a TIN matching to verify the vendors. An interesting thing about the TIN matching is you can only do a couple of submissions a day. So we recommend using the bulk file upload, where you can just upload all the vendors that you are going to have a 1099 for. Yeah, if you do more than like five, I think they lock you out for 2 days, is what we've seen that happen. You can generate the bulk file upload using Cogitate's TIN matching menu item and payables. So I'm going to go ahead and show that. Accounting. What's that? So if I go into payables, we got TIN verify. We got a bunch of vendors. I'm going to validate a couple of them. Click create verification file. Just my desktops. I created it, and then I can create the IRS TIN matching. I'm going to sign in with my ID.me account. I scroll down to my service. I go to my TIN matching. I click accept. The begin interactive allows you to type in a TIN type EIN or SSN or unknown, the SSN, EIN, and then the last or first name of the business. So I want to go back. I want to go to begin bulk session, choose file. This was my documents, and I want to send it to my email. It'll go into your secure mailbox, which is right here. Or you could also specify an optional email address that'll also send a notification. It'll send you a notification to this email address when it is done validating, which usually takes about a day. So then you just go ahead and click submit. And then you're done. And then you just wait for the results. I'm going to go ahead and log out now. And once you have the results, you can go back into TIN verify. You can go into the read results and you can click the load results file. I don't think I have a results file available. Yeah, I don't have a results file available, but it will read it. It'll put the code, the vendor, the TIN, and then the IRS result. Depending on what they do, we'll have error codes. If it matches, it'll probably say something like it matches the IRS records. And if it matches for all your 1099 vendors, then you're good to go. Otherwise, you may want to get in contact with your vendor to get an updated W-9 from them. Because if the vendor you're trying to do a 1099 for if you do the validation and they don't match, then when you try to upload your 1099s, it will throw a probably an accepted with errors or just rejected depending on what error there is. So a lot of times we get into trouble when the vendor is doing business as, or they happen to change a little bit of their official name. So, because that's what the IRS actually uses, that same service, the TIN matching, to validate. So you'll be using that. I just want to make sure that you are aware of that. And then, to request access to that service, I usually just go into here and type in IRS TIN matching. And it'll be the first one. And then you could access the application and request access to it. So that's how I would request access to it. All right. You might also want to verify you have access to the 1099 IRS taxpayer portal to actually upload the forms that the e-file forms generate, the AIR portal, if you are required to file ACA forms, and then the SSA AccuWage to submit your W-2s. We have released the 2025 ACA file formats, and then we will test the file format on the IRS site when it's supposed to go live today, so we'll have to check that after the webinar. I'll probably log online to see if the testing is available. Because once we clear our tests, then we know our file formats correctly and they're ready for you guys to upload. Again, those aren't due until February, and right now they're just testing. The IRS has not done the official upload yet. Right now they'll be up for testing. For both the IRS taxpayer portal and ACA, the AIR ACA portal, you don't have to do anything in preparation for the tax season if no information changes. If your responsible officials, officers that you put when you first signed up are the same, then there's no changes. If one of the officers no longer works there, you're going to have to get somebody else and basically reapply for access to the portal, either portal. So you just want to make sure you get that taken care of. If you have to change a responsible official, it shouldn't take nearly as long because you don't have to wait for a code. It will probably take you a few days. Once you change it, then both people, you and then the person that you change it to, will have to log in and sign it using their PIN. And then the IRS will review it, and then it'll say in progress or completed when they're finished. So I just want to make sure that you get that done if you have any changes in plenty of time. The SSA one could take up if you happen to have somebody new type in for the SSA, then you're going to have to get a whole new ID. The SSA does not want people sharing their logins for the AccuWage. So if you happen to get a new person who's doing the AccuWage and the employee who used to upload the W-2s is no longer there, unfortunately, you will have to log in and as the new employee using your ID.me and basically request access to AccuWage for your county or township or road commission. And then that could take up to 6 weeks. So I just want to point that out. In conversations that we had with the SSA when trying to get ours switched, they said, no, you can't do that. You're supposed to have a new one if a new person is doing the upload for the W-2s. Also, if you're reporting if you did ACA last year, there's nothing you have to do. You do not have to submit a communications test or anything like that. Your ACA just automatically rolls over to the next year. However, if you are filing for the first time, if you have to file ACA, your 1090, whatever 1095s, whatever they are, 1094s, then you have to submit a communications test. We have help videos on how to do that. But if you have to, I'd recommend doing it now because you will have to call the IRS. You'll have to submit them and then call the IRS with the results. That process can take time. So I would recommend that you do that now if you have to do ACA for the first time.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.